Ernie Clement, Andre Jimenez, and a slew of other ex-Guardians helped the Toronto Blue Jays make their deepest postseason run in the last 30 years, while the Guardians continue to search for consistent offense. We'll debate the question that has flummoxed the Cleveland Guardians, identifying talent versus turning it into major league success. That's ahead on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Guardians fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Guardians. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen to every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. Proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to the Everydayers who make us enjoy talking Cleveland Guardians baseball, basically 365 days a year. I'm Justin Lada, one of your co-hosts here on Locked On Guardians for the past 3 years. I spent 18 years covering the Guardians farm system as an editor-in-chief and prospect evaluator. From draft day to the big leagues, I've seen just about every prospect on every stop on the road to Cleveland.
And I'm Jeff Ellis, your other host here, one of the first hosts when Locked On expanded into baseball. Before that, I was a national draft and prospect analyst at Scouting 24/7. Again, I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And shout out to Kevin Knapp. I think that's the first person who said they discovered us from XM radio. So thank you for joining us and being on the ride. You were talking about how, it's great. Toronto has made it this far and Seattle made it to the ALCS for the first time since 2001. Just going to point out both those teams. Cleveland's made it twice since both those teams have made it one time.
Yep. Yeah. That's in the last 30 years. 32 years ago, the Blue Jays have not gotten this far since they made it to the World Series in 93. And then
it was 24 for Seattle, right?
This is the first time they've made it to a Game 7 in the ALCS. So this is by far the deepest they've ever played in the postseason ever in their franchise history.
Outside of the times Toronto won the World Series.
I meant the Mariners.
Okay.
Mariners. Yeah. This is the deepest they've ever played into the postseason in their entire franchise's history. So it's not as long suffering as we are here in Cleveland, but it's not up there.
Seattle hasn't been around long enough to be that long suffering, right? But
their fans seem to think they are. On today's show, we'll talk about who is Luke House, the Guardians' newest minor league pitcher they just signed. We'll talk about the debate between improving internally and externally in free agency this offseason. And we'll start off today's show talking about scouting, identifying talent versus developing it. The age-old question for the Guardians: what came first, the chicken or the egg? Today's episode of Locked On Guardians, of course, brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So, yes, everybody likes to sit there and say, well, this guy left Cleveland and he is doing great as a hitter. Why can't we ever do that here? And there are cases for that, right? There are definitely cases. I know we're going to look through and talk about, obviously, Ernie Clement and other guys. And look, there's no doubt that these guys are either getting opportunities or they're developing for whatever reason somewhere else. And that definitely, I think, speaks to a problem in Cleveland, whether that's a development thing, an opportunity thing. Is it both? I think the one thing you could say is talent identification isn't the issue here. But I think it's I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's identifying the guys you want to keep and what traits even attracted you to them to draft them or sign them or trade for them. Because there's multiple avenues for player acquisition. Let's remember, even though this team, we say it relies on the draft, it does, but they don't really do much international scouting, and we do know trades have been a big piece of this team as well. So it's not just identifying amateur talent, which is by far the hardest. The Guardians do a much better job identifying talent and identifying players that can be major league contributors through trades, probably better than they do in the draft, I would say, because you've got a little bit of time in the minors to maybe look at guys and see what works and what doesn't. But I think the development piece is fair. There are guys that have moved on that have found different success for one reason or another, and I think that has to make you look in the mirror and figure out, okay, well, what caused that issue? We have to be able to be honest with ourselves and adjust our processes.
I do want to quickly say I was wrong on Toronto. I completely blanked on them in 15 and 16. So Toronto has made it 3 times in the last 10 years.
Oh yeah.
So
The
yeah,
Jose
the John
Bautista,
Gibbons.
Bautista hit the home run with the big bat flip in 15, and then 16 they faced Cleveland, obviously.
Yeah. So I just want to point out before someone jumps in, I'm sure there's already comments.
Probably.
But I just had a brain cramp. I forgot about those teams. But for what's probably a top 5 market size, you'd expect more, right? But I mean, 3 times in the past.
They play in the hardest division. Let's be honest. They
do.
I mean, they're top 5 in market size, but let's also be honest and say they played in the same division as the Yankees and the Red Sox, who also are big spenders.
I know it's always difficult, but it's like, and the other thing too, it's like Houston is kind of the elephant in the room. Like, how many of those years with Houston were cheat years in the last 10? Like they had maybe, that's the other side of the coin.
I mean, hey, to be fair, the Red Sox, I know people love when we cut each other off. To be fair, the Red Sox also got caught doing something they shouldn't have been doing either, and they also were not punished. It was Alex Cora had to be suspended for a year, and then he came back.
Yeah, and the only time it makes me a little bit annoyed is when I think, oh, well, Cleveland did something against the rules. They're going to get more punishment than Clase and Ortiz will get more punishment than the entire Astros and Red Sox organizations, right?
Yes, probably.
And all of them had to do with the integrity of the game. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's a story for another day. But I agree. Like, it's one of those things where everyone, when you are a fan, sorry, now I'm the interrupter, everyone fixates on the one that got away. And it's easy to do. But the thing I will come back and I'm going to tell you, every single organization has them. Every single organization you talk to, living in another city outside of Cleveland, it was, Milwaukee just got swept. Every complaint I have been getting in our comments, everything is here in Milwaukee as well. I'm reading it, I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it. And they also know the ones who got away, the guys who found success after they left. So that's just part of the game of baseball. Like, I'll give my theory on it in a bit. Part of the big reason why they missed out on a lot of these guys, but that's just, to a degree, that's baseball.
It is baseball for sure. I mean, it's one of those sports where development's a whole lot different than it is in any other sports, right? Because you don't have in the NFL and the NBA like the minor leagues or college or or I guess it used to be high school in the NBA, but that's very uncertain or limited, not anymore. But you don't have the minor leagues over there. Like, you don't have development, things like that. You don't go through a whole development cycle there. Like, there are guys who obviously sit the bench and become big players.
You got like the G League or something like that back in the day for NBA, right?
And the G League does still exist. Yeah.
And the NFL does it 100%. So you got that one there. The NFL is really the only one that doesn't have some degree of minor leagues, but none of them are
comparative baseball. Yeah, I mean, I can't sit here and tell you how much development goes on in terms of the G League and what guys are successful, what percentage of guys are successful from, because you can get picked off at any time from a G League affiliate to another team and get signed. So even if you have like a certain guy on your G League team, the Philadelphia 76ers or somebody could come along and be like, oh, we're signing that guy to a contract. You can't do anything about it. So that's one of those things that works very differently. But baseball, it's a lot about opportunity. And it's a lot about failure and learning to adjust. And, I think it would be very easy to say, because I think a lot of the easy answer for people is going to say, well, they do a really good job developing pitching. Why can't they do it hitting? And everybody externally sees that. So I guarantee you everybody internally sees that. I mean, for as much as people might want to complain or nitpick, and that's fine, because it's not like this no one's perfect. We're not perfect. The front office certainly isn't. Nobody in this organization is. So I think it's very likely this team said, okay, what are our processes? How are we doing things when we talk about developing pitching? And how do we apply that to hitting? Because like anything else, whether you're, in business or teaching, whatever you're doing, if there are things that are working for you in one area of your job, right, and you have another area of your job where things aren't going so well, you're going to look at the process you use and follow to the area that's doing really well. And you're going to say, how can I follow the same process to the other aspect of it improve? So I guarantee if we're thinking it and we realize that, they do too, and they still haven't nailed it down. So I don't think it's the issue of identification, Jeff. I do think there is a developmental issue, but like you said, there's complications to it. There's very unique aspects to it.
I know when we come back from break, we can discuss it. I do think there is, I don't think it's all development, because I think we see, Well, I'll explain why I don't think it's. Well, I'm going to disagree with you when we come back from the break.
Oh, he's going to disagree with me. All right, we'll touch on that here on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. The NFL season is flying by, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss before it flies by. Right now, if you are a new customer and you haven't got in on the game yet, you can put down just $5 on FanDuel right now for a whatever bet you feel comfortable with. If you're a new customer, if that bet hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. By far, the best offer we've ever seen from our friends over at FanDuel. I know last week I steered you wrong and I said pick against the Browns because that's normally what the odds say, and that's what they say is a smart play. It was not, so maybe we won't go that route this time. I don't know what's going to happen in the World Series. We got the Blue Jays or the Mariners versus the Dodgers. All that money seems to be going towards the Dodgers, let's be honest. The Cavs are starting next week, so that could be fun, something fun you can sink your teeth into every single night, have a little bit of fun with a team that you should expect to win every night on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, friends, let's be honest here for a second with each other. I know, like me and like a lot of other people, we can't really name all of our financial accounts, where all of our money is going these days, let alone what each account is worth, what you're bringing in, what's going out. And that could be things like 401ks, savings, retirement funds, investments. Very easy to lose track these days because everything is in different places. Not with Monarch. Monarch is an all-in-one personal finance tool. It's going to bring everything in your financial life together in one easy-to-use interface. Whether it's on your laptop or your phone, you can start taking control of your money. This is a tough way to do that, right? We all have stuff coming in. We have stuff going out. We're trying to keep track of our money. We're trying to plan for vacations. We're trying to plan for home improvements. Maybe you're trying to send your kid off to college. You got to make sure you're keeping track of what's going in, what's going out, and what you have where. It's a very important time for us to keep track of where our money is. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks for you. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thanks for all being here with us on this episode of Locked On Guardians. If you are an everydayer, appreciate that. Leave it in the comments. Let us know if you want a shout out, or you can leave it in a review anywhere you get podcasts. And if you're not an everydayer, become one by hitting the bell on YouTube so you always get notified of when our next episode goes live, when we post any sort of reaction video, whether that's post-game, breaking news, some just thoughts that we're carrying around in our head, and or auto download on all of your audio platforms to get it right into your feed so you always can catch up when you miss an episode. That's the best way to support the show as well. So you think I do think it's not all development. I do think there is a case of it being identification too, because we've seen the Guardians bring in players in the draft, international free agency, where it's, remember the things we've been complaining about for years now. It's all contact and up the middle and all this kind of stuff. And they haven't identified, or they've been unwilling to at least take risks on guys who do things a little bit differently. So they acquired.
Well, all they do is take guys who do things differently. They've chased unicorns for way too long. That's part of the problem.
Well, they have chased unicorns, but they did stockpile.
But yeah, I agree. No, that was what I was going to say. You beat me to it. It's just why I disagreed with you is because they have distinctly changed their approach over the last two drafts. They've realized that contact because here's the thing. On a very basic level, the king of contact in the time I've been covering this team, the player they drafted who had, I believe, the lowest strikeout, was the hardest to strike out player at a major program, was the guy we talked about earlier, was Ernie Clement. And Ernie Clement, I was never a fan of him here. You can go back, though, and listen to an interview I had with Adam Lieberman. I'll bring it up again. He used to be the guy with the Akron Arrows. Great guy. And I said, who's your most underrated prospect in the system? And he said Ernie Clement. And I won't tell you why. But, it's interesting that Clement kind of had to bounce around. He had to fail in Oakland. He had to do other things. He has changed his swing. The contact skills were always there, the underlying data, but he needed more. And, it's that thing. But the reason I think you can say part of it is identification is because, even, let's be honest, even into the 24 class, the Knapsicks, the Hawks, those guys are 24, right? That was just trying to think, 23. Right? 23. Okay. Yeah, you're right. 23. Even through that 23 class, we had a lot of the contact and nothing else. And, it just seems like they thought, hey, we can maybe add power, or we can change, swing angles and do this or that. And it hasn't functioned. It hasn't worked. So I think there is a degree with the draft of misidentification.
I agree with that for sure. But there's also the development piece of it too, where the idea, it's a little more simplistic. I'm making it more simplistic than it probably is, but in layman's terms, at least what's been described to us and how we evaluate it is we're taking guys who make better contact and we're teaching them to hit for more power. That was their goal anyway, right? That's a developmental failure, if you ask me, because you're going with
I
the
think that's
process.
ID failure.
Well, no, because you're identifying. I mean, I guess you're identifying guys that don't have the ability to hit for more power.
Yeah.
But you're also banking on your development of, hey, we can teach these guys power, right? Like it's the same. It's almost the same thing of saying we have these guys who we know can throw strikes, but we know we can teach them to throw harder, and that has worked. But I don't think it's a 1-to-1 correlation. But I think it's easy to say, like,
can you find one example where they've been successful at that?
Of what?
Of taking a guy with good contact rates and getting him to add like.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. So to me, it's like, is it development or is it just? See, I think it's not. I think it's both. I think both are broken. And not completely. Again, I believe in their development, but it's like if you because this isn't a team that's going to approach something willy nilly, so they have a distinct approach. They think it could be successful. Mm-hmm. If the guys they are picking were halfway decent, they'd have at least one breakthrough, right? There'd be one example. There'd be the one player that, like, the fact that there is none. There isn't any guy you and I could think of at the top of our head who has shown significant power improvement to go from average to even above average, go from below average to, I mean, maybe Quan is the guy who went from below to average, but I mean, Jose was, but he was before all of this.
He was. But I want to say, I feel like the Lindor and Jose success, because none of us thought, for as much as you and I watch prospects, there's not a single one of us who thought Jose Ramirez or Francisco Lindor were 30 home run hitters. We did not.
I thought Lindor would get to 30. I honestly did.
Really? I kind of figured 20 peak.
No, I thought he'd be a 20 to 30 guy. I didn't think he would hit beyond 30. I thought he'd be low 30s. But
I didn't think Jose was a 30 guy either.
No, I mean, Jose, I missed on. Like, there's no way. But I mean, even the people who I know who loved Jose were like, okay, average regular. Like, there weren't a lot of people.
And that's what I said too. I thought, yeah. But I think the reason I was kind of what spurred them
was just because when he went to Seattle, and I thought for sure Seattle was going to take him. I knew people at the time tied to Seattle. The show Lindor put on as a 17-year-old in their stadium, which is not an easy place to hit home runs, as a scrawny kid then. Like, he was not, like, he wasn't, he was a good baseball player. He wasn't like a nothing, but he was not built out yet. Like, so I always thought, I'm like, this guy is above average power. Like, Jeter Light was kind of the comp on draft day, which I knew was going to get me in trouble, but
better defense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I think that's kind of what, I don't know for sure, but I feel like that's kind of what led them in this direction of taking guys who make contact. Like Lindor and Jose were contact kings. They were hitting approach kings, and they blossomed into more power. So I feel like that's kind of what led them down this path, maybe. And they just haven't been able to recreate it. Like, I don't know. Can you win with 8 or 9 Stephen Kwans? I don't know. Maybe, but probably not. That's why you need, and that's why I want to point out too. Like, people are talking about, and the Blue Jays are winning with Andres Gimenez and Miles Straw and Ernie Clement and Nathan Lukes, for those who do know about Nathan Lukes. But they're not winning with those guys at the central core of everything. Like, they're winning because they have Vlad Guerrero, and they developed on Alejandro Kirk, and they signed George Springer, who worked out. And Bo Bichette, who I know isn't part of the LCS roster, has been very good for them. They traded for Dalton Varsho. They identified that player. Those guys are filling in the gaps around those big pieces, and that's what the Guardians are lacking. They have a Jose Ramirez, and they're trying to develop other guys so that when you have an Ernie Clement or a Brian Rocchio or whoever, so those guys can fill the gaps. Like, the Blue Jays can get away with Andres Gimenez playing Gold Glove defense and hitting 30% below league average because they have Bo Bichette at short, because they have Vlad Guerrero in the middle of the order, because they have a George Springer, and because they have Dalton Varsho hitting over an 800 OPS in the outfield. And he's a Gold Glover, by the way, or he has been a Gold Glover. That's why those guys work. You can afford those sorts of things when you have those other big pieces that they develop themselves. So that's where the Guardians
But they also
get in trouble.
got there. Just, I know people have an interruption, but the other part too that you just have to add in is they got there. They got to those guys by having a complete teardown, a complete rebuild. For every Bichette, for every Vlad, there's a Kevin Biggio. They tore down after that 16 team. They fired Alex Anthopoulos and to build up the talent to have the Nate Pearsons fail, the Kevin Biggios fail. They had a lot of guys fail, and it's but they got some studs out of it. There's no way around it. But it's harder to do when you are trying to do it on the run.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, well, Vlad was an international free agent.
He was.
They had some ties there that helped them out a little bit as well. And Guardians don't have that geographical advantage. All right, we'll talk more about internal improvements versus free agency and why the Guardians need to continue to improve within. And we'll also touch on Luke House, the minor leaguer or the prospect the Guardians signed last week, and who he is on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. Guys, we all know there's nothing as exciting as live events, baseball games, basketball games, concerts, comedy shows, musicals. All that stuff is fun to be at in person. But we know getting the tickets, that can be the annoying, frustrating part. And that's surprise fees, high prices, logins, waiting for tickets in a queue. Nobody likes that. That's why I use Game Time. It's an app that gives the advantage back to fans like us. Game Time is fast, it's easy, and it's backed by the Game Time guarantee. So you're always going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. And the best thing about Game Time is all the fees are included. So you know your total up front. There are no surprise fees at checkout. You know exactly how much it's going to cost to go to that comedy show, to go to that concert, to go to that sporting event. That's what we all want. We want to make it easier to buy the best tickets. That's what Game Time helps us all do. Find the best tickets at the best price and no surprise fees. So download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, that is promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, wrapping up here on today's Locked On Guardians, of course. Check out MLB Game Night after you're done listening to Locked On Guardians. They will have the breakdown of the ALCS. Will it be the Blue Jays? Will it be the Mariners? The Blue Jays just took a 4-3 lead as we're recording this, so be a lot of interesting perspectives to hear from our Locked On Blue Jays and our Locked On Mariners hosts. And then, of course, Locked On MLB Game Night will have the World Series covered for you every single game, every single night as well. The only place that could do it on a local scale with your experts that live and die, cover the team every single day. All right, so, Jeff, you think that improvement for this team, and I agree with you, I think it starts with development. They have to develop internally a little better. And I wonder, not necessarily guys at the surface level, like they have, like Chase DeLauder kind of represents that guy we're talking about, right? The guy that they didn't really improve his power, but they found the guy that can hit for contact and power if he can stay on the field long enough to do it. Those are the guys you do want, but I'm interested to see how they improve their approach with guys like Jace Laviolette and Nolan Schubart, and those are, two very unique examples in a class where they still also took guys like Luke Hill and
Luke Hill.
Yeah.
Aaron Walters, right?
Well, I mean, Walton doesn't make a ton of contact. That's the thing. He doesn't have pop, and he's not a high contact hitter, so that was a weird pick.
Yeah, it's and let's be real honest, like the reason you talked about many times, Chase DeLauder was a guy who was a potential 1-1 pick in that draft class, but he's got a funky swing and he gets hurt all the time. And we've seen the getting hurt all the time is still there. That's one of the things. So, and that's the other thing too, like trying to set their whole style off of Jose and Lindor is kind of insane, because we talked about there's no one like Jose. He's a complete, no one predicted him getting there. And Lindor is already the third most productive first round pick in the history of franchise. He's a bit of a unicorn in his own right. And the other thing too, it's like they got Lindor because they had a top 10 pick. They haven't had a lot of those. Like that's whenever someone brings up, oh, aren't you jealous of where the Tigers are and all their young talent? I'm like, they had to stink for a long time to put up the talent. Like, and part of the reason I think what's happening, to go back to segment one before I finish this off, is which I never got to state, was just the plain and simple fact. Like Ernie Clement didn't get those opportunities here. Maybe he would have figured out a swing decisions because they didn't have the ability when you're on the run, when you are trying to contend. You can't give those young guys the reps that they sometimes need. And, you get those opportunities from time to time. This year, you were hoping to get it for Lada and Brito, and they would have had those, but then those guys got hurt. So it's always trying to find those moments. That's why they've missed, Junior Caminero was a young kid. Nathan Lukes was a guy in his first year. I'm not going to with that. Jimenez struggled all year. But, the guys like Ernie Clement, he just never got the chance here. Alex Call, people don't complain about him, but that's a guy you should probably complain about because the team's need for outfield and someone that never got the opportunity here. So yeah, that's just part of it. I think it's reps are hard to come by when you're contending. But, I was telling Justin before he got on air, of the free agents in this year's free agent class, not counting people who could opt out, there are currently 20 players who had a WAR of 2 or better, one of them being JT Realmuto. So that means there are 20 players, in all of free agency who were league average by definition of WAR. 2 is about a league average star. Now, could Cleveland use some guys who were league average? Absolutely. Center field, right field, shortstop, catcher, some pretty obvious spots. But the point of the matter is that the Dodgers plan to chase Kyle Tucker. They still got more money. The Yankees are going to spend. There's all these other teams. So it's free agency is a sucker's bet. You're paying for past production. Cleveland always has to go try to find the flawed gem, and they haven't been successful because that's the way the game. Philly's going to have money to spend. New York, all these teams have the funds. So you can gamble on hey, Lane Thomas will rebound and get back to a 2.5 value and be a 2020 guy again. And maybe you can get him cheap, but a lot of other teams are going to be interested in him because he is the second youngest right-handed outfielder in this free agent class. Second youngest. Just let that sink in at age 30. So your best bet to actually getting above average production is your young players right now. Those are the guys, especially because what we have seen time and time again, I was talking to Justin Off Air about this, like Colton Cowser had a big fall apart year this past year. You go and you look at guys recently, a lot of guys have that great rookie year and then, BABIP progression, the league figures them out. And then it never, Nolan Jones, Will Benson, some of the guys we traded that we talked about before. So there's that degree of you're probably your best bet at finding above average production isn't the cast-offs. It's not the dumpster diving. It's not the 37 to 40-year-olds you're hoping can hold on for one more year. It's your own internal youth. Because they do have talent. The talent is starting to crash. There are some legit options to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, again, to point this out, too, Clement bounced from Oakland to Toronto, and Giovanni Urshela, if you go back that far, he went from Cleveland to Toronto, cut by Toronto, went to the Yankees, cut, and then finally found something that worked for him. That doesn't mean the Guardians don't need to improve on their development, because Giovanni Urshela did get opportunities here. Not as much, but some. Yeah. So you're right. It is about opportunities as well, and that's where they're going to have to go this year as long as the guys stay on the field. All right, let's wrap this up a little bit more with Luke House as we get out of here. So the Guardians made an oddly timed signing of a undrafted free agent, Luke House, who is out of eligibility at Division II. I want to say this is Ouachita Baptist University, probably the Astros' favorite college. Just got from Ouachita.
Nicely done. Comment of the day.
6'6" right-hander. There's a lot of interesting traits here. This is what we talk about with the Guardians and their ability to identify, right? It's traits they like. So 6'6" kid who throws in the low to mid 90s, lots of extension, very lanky, a huge curveball, kind of a data darling. I'm very surprised that he was still out there. I mean, really nothing eye-popping numbers-wise in college, and you're going to get to that point now where teams are taking players who don't necessarily have the stats on paper to back it up, but that's how the Mariners got really successful, is they have found guys who the stats don't jump off the page at you. You want to, go by stats a little bit, make sure guys are doing something well, but when you're looking at a D2 guy like Luke House, you're looking at traits here, and I don't know, I could see where they're coming from. I could see the outline here that they're going to try to fill in. And it's really interesting, especially given the time of year that they're signing him. You just don't see it very commonly.
I do like that there's a Hall of Famer listed from Ouachita Baptist, and that's Travis Jackson. I don't know how that worked because he debuted at age 18. So That confused me a bit in 1922, but hey, there is that. Yeah, I agree.
Things
You're
were
looking at
different 100 years ago.
They were. He's got a nice pitch mix. Splitters are becoming more of a thing in baseball. We're seeing more and more of them. He's got a nasty one. Curve is high spin, but that doesn't typically matter as much. We've talked about, but his fastball doesn't have the most vertical break, is what it was. But he's got some velocity. He went to a program that I'd never heard of. Okay, and not to say that I am like the end all be all, but I don't spend a lot of time on the Division II. I just don't have that time. So this is just traits. This is 100% a 22. A guy's going to be 23 in February, an older prospect, but a big old, literally big ball of clay.
Yeah, that's what you want. That's exciting. And this is the kind of guy Cleveland should be going after. It's
Exactly.
A lot harder to identify when it's hitting. Pitching, because everyone needs it. There's multiple. It's a little bit different when it comes to pitching. But this is exciting. I'm excited to see where he goes next year. And if we see him in Lake County, like, Cade Smith, again, undrafted free agent. You just never know, especially when it comes to pitchers. And that's where the Guardians need to improve offensively, is finding guys that are balls of clay that have the data they like. I suppose it's easier. There's more data for pitchers than there is hitters, and you just aren't facing major league quality pitching in the minors in college. You're not facing major league quality pitchers either, hitters either, but the data and the stuff there is a little bit easier to identify, I would say personally. So let us know what you think between the Guardians' issues between identifying talent and developing it and getting them playing time. I know one commenter who's going to agree with us on social media. On tomorrow's show, Jeff and I are going to do Stock Watch Wednesday. Buy, sell, and hold. Let us know in the comments which Guardians players or prospects you are buying for next year, ones you're selling stock on, and who you're going to hold on to. If you have been high on a player before, it could be a Guardians major leaguer, it could be a prospect. We'll discuss that on tomorrow's show.
Yep. Thank you for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. Do your part. Thank you all, and go Guardians. Go.
Cheetah.